Hello and welcome to an episode that talks about media content accountability. I am Sakshi Mandwal and our subject expert is Ms. Swati Singh, a media professional for the last 12 years, specialized in mass communication, having worked as a journalist with Hindustan Times, Indian Express, Career Launchers, etc., and also having taught print and electronic media in various universities and colleges, including Delhi University. Today, we shall be discussing the importance of authentic media content. With the improved technological development and the increase of fake news phenomenon, consumers' perceptions of news media credibility are changing in today's climate of increasing political and ideological polarization. There are various things we need to understand on this issue, which we shall be discussing in detail. Let's start by discussing the objectives of this episode. The objectives of the lesson include to understand the changing media environment. Next, we shall discuss the issues of media credibility, social responsibility of media while covering crime. Later, we will discuss the various credibility factors. We will also discuss media brand equity to learn about elements that makes great content. Lastly, we will talk about the value of great content. Let us start by discussing why credibility of content is so important. The audience perception of media credibility has been dropping since the 70s. In fact, a problem that news media is suffering is the credibility crisis, with academic and industry consistently showing a growing skepticism about the fairness, accuracy and trustworthiness of media reports. With rise of cases of fake news, misinterpretation and misinformation growing rapidly in the news media, the question of authentic data and analysis is gaining huge importance. In fact, some researchers attribute the corrosion of public credibility and confidence in the media to factors such as the media institutions' takeover by profit companies, along with the creation and consolidation of media conglomerates in few hands, shifting the focus of media from their informative role to profitability goals. In this scenario, the media companies are devoting an increasing attention to the management of audience perception of their credibility. Since research suggests that audience is less likely to patronize news they do not deem credible, just like products with low brand equity. Advertising brings huge revenues and therefore brands exploit the news organizations on the given basis. Very few media are today believed to be honest about their reporting. This way, media which are perceived to be credible have a higher likelihood of being patronized by audience or consumers. On the other hand, in the last 2 decades, an enormous and continuous news media audience fragmentation was observed. At the same time, the increasingly competitive media environment is characterized by diverse media channels delivering specialized content in a variety of formats to numerous niche audiences or customers, where traditional media types compete with the virtual formats. Facing this new environment, media companies are beginning to embrace branding management principles and practices once restricted to the marketing of consumer products, enhancing the importance of brand management for media companies. These two trends have increased the academics and scholars' interest to analyze the sources of media credibility, despite the lack of research on specific contexts in order to assess the creation and enhancement of media credibility. We shall discuss the analysis keeping in mind the media credibility as a function of audience-based variables, customer-based variables, applying the credible brand model in order to assess how consumers and audience make credibility judgments about mass communication media. This model proposes that audiences' perception of media credibility depends on the customer-based brand equity perception of the mass media. More specifically, our basic aim would be to provide a deeper understanding of variables influencing media credibility in a specific context, the Spanish press media. Thus, our episode aims to analyze the relation between news media, customer-based brand equity, and their credibility. Issues of mass media credibility. Credibility studies in mass communication have remained an integral part of the field's body of knowledge and currently include studies about the influence of the source, type of media, or message characteristics on the audience's perception of credibility. Brand credibility is the extent to which a brand is perceived to be credible in terms of three dimensions: expertise, trustworthiness, and likability. Despite research showing a relation between credibility and brand attributes for non-media products, a little empirical research has been conducted to determine if this relation holds the truth for the news media. Whereas customer-based brand equity was traditionally used to differentiate between consumer products in marketing, media credibility was used for the same purpose in journalism. Researchers define credibility as a characteristic of message sources that make messages ascribed to high credibility sources more credible than similar messages ascribed to lower credibility sources. The mass communication media credibility can be conceptualized as the audience's perception of news channel believability, as distinct from the believability of an individual journalist. Source credibility, where does the news come from, or the believability of the news content. Message credibility, which was one of the earliest measures of mass media credibility, was developed by those who yielded a credibility scale. Later, there were two credibility factors which were identified, namely affiliation, which means measuring fairness, bias, accuracy, or trustworthiness, and believability. Furthermore, refined Mayer's credibility scale defining two constructs, accuracy and trustworthiness. More specifically, this research focuses on mass media type credibility. The concept salient in this, since evidence is tested empirically in press media to analyze the relationship between media credibility and customer-based brand equity. We would now discuss media brand equity and how it is affected by credibility. In today's competitive marketplace, brand equity is a key source of strategic management for marketeers, since it enables to diagnose why one brand is considered superior or better valued than the other brand. Recent literature provides with a substantial number of contributions to the conceptualization of brand equity. Brand equity is conceptualized as the set of assets linked to the brand, which incorporate or decrease the value provided by a product or service to the company or its customers. We would discuss a study which incorporates four dimensions of brand equity, which are perceived quality, awareness, associations or image, and loyalty. Moreover, customer-based brand equity influences consumers' perceptions, attitude, and behavior towards the brand. So, our research incorporates two consequences of brand value proposed by, namely brand credibility and brand attitude. In this research, we will define and measure media brand equity using the components proposed by and defining media equity as a set of components that flow into an overall and subjected value linked to a media brand, engendering a differential response from consumers or audience. As it was stated before, media managers are increasingly turning to consumer branding strategies in order to improve audiences' perceptions and credibility of their brands, and thus gain advantage in the media market, since branding incorporates all strategic management processes towards differentiating a product from similar ones in the same category. Thus, we can imply that successful branding strategies create and enhance customer-based brand equity, which is a measure of the strength and favorability of audience perception of a brand. Thus, news media with high customer-based equity gets market advantages such as greater audience, perception of media credibility, media quality perception, and higher media brand loyalty. Authors like analyzed the relationship among these concepts and found a relationship among customer-based brand equity and media credibility. News media companies with high customer-based brand equity enjoy market advantages such as relatively greater audience perception of credibility compared to competitors with lower media brand value. Hence, our research builds on the findings of these previous studies and hence proposes that credibility is a multi-dimensional concept influenced by customer-based brand equity. So, we pose that media customer-based brand equity influences and has effect on media credibility. Now, let us discuss about the key elements required to create credible and good content for our audiences. There are a lot of steps to create a great piece of content. We shall be discussing these steps in detail, starting with the content should be unique. The first rule for creating great content is that it's unique. Never ever spin or duplicate content in any manner. That really goes against all of the trust principles in place and is effectively plagiarizing. You will never rank a piece of content that's plagiarized from another source. Make sure that the content is unique, not only in prose but also in its insights reached. You don't want to spin another article even if you write it yourself without directly copying and also reach the same insights. You need it to be uniquely insightful as well as unique in its words. The content has an attractive, keyword rich title. If you're serious about creating great content, then ensure that it has an attractive and keyword rich title. Whether it's an article, a video or some other form of content, it has to be attractive. What draws someone to click on a listing over another listing is acutely important to search engines like Google. Even if your content ranks lower than higher ranked content, if yours is getting clicked on more, then it will eventually move its way up and above the other content. We are not talking about clickbait here. We are talking about attractive titles that draw the searcher in to investigate further. The content is relevant to your audience. Make sure that your article is relevant to your audience. Don't try to create content that doesn't appeal to your readership. You'll just lose their interest. The entire article or piece of content must apply in some way, shape or form to your existing audience. If you don't have an existing audience, be sure to laser focus your content to appeal to a specific topic, niche or industry. This is important when attempting to drive traffic because it's at the heart of relevancy. The more similar content you have and that you keep churning out over time, the more applicable it will be to a given audience. In turn, they will keep returning to your site to gobble up content in that arena. Highly engaging. Great content is highly engaging. From a metric standpoint, this means that the content is read and absorbed and digested in that visitors are spending a lot of time on your page. The average time spent on a page says a lot about a specific piece of content. If you're serious about ranking and creating great content, it has to go all out. When visitors are engaged, they not only take time reading your content, but they then click around to other areas of your site. You've basically piqued their interest and delivered something to them that they were looking for. You were relevant for a reason. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of great content that's highly engaging and that ultimately ranks higher. Solicits sharing with peers or groups. Sharing is at the basis of great content. When someone loves your content, they're compelled to share it with others. Those shares go a long way and are at the basis of creating authority on a website. By writing great content, you're inviting people to share it both on social media sites and also by linking to it in blog posts and other areas of the internet. Imagine great content that you've discovered in the past. When you connect with a piece of content and it speaks to you, you want to share it with your entire network. Google knows that great content is shared often, so it tracks both the number of those shares and the velocity, that is, speed of acceleration or deceleration in sharing over time. Useful and provides massive value. Great content is highly useful and it delivers massive amounts of value. Teach people something that they are hungry to learn and do it in the best way that you know possible. Go all out, go into great detail and give away the proverbial farm. As counterintuitive as it might sound, that's the pathway to success in the online world. When you create useful content that helps people, you become an authority. As your authority builds, so does your potential for income. Your voice begins to matter more and more over time, and people look to you for your opinion on a given topic, industry, or niche. However, you have to be consistent with your value and always do your best to help others. Content that is optimized for a specific keyword. Writing great content is difficult in and of itself. However, writing great content that's also optimized for a specific keyword and isn't over optimized is the hardest part. You have to be careful about how often or how little you use your keyword, and you have to also ensure that the entire piece of content sounds natural and organic. Be very careful about trying to hit a specific keyword density. There is no exact perfect density of keywords. The most important thing is that the content be obviously targeted towards a keyword and sound as natural as possible. You should not try to design your content for search engines, but rather for humans. Well written and free of errors. This one should be pretty obvious. Make sure that your content is free of errors, not just spelling errors, but also grammatical errors. While a couple of errors won't destroy your chances of crafting excellent content, too many errors will severely debilitate you. The problem? Errors interrupt the flow of reading. When someone comes across too many errors, they end up losing interest. Search engines like Google know this, and they pay careful attention to the amount and severity of the errors that are found in a given piece of content. Avoid being labeled as thin content. One of the reasons why I tend to be able to create great, not that also ranks very high on search engines, is because I avoid creating thin content. Thin content is short content that's more designed as filler text than anything else. How can you expect to deliver value through thin content? You can't. Thin content is often less than 500 words and sometimes less than 1000 words. You should shoot for content that's over 2000 words. Studies suggest that this type of content ranks best. Not only does it rank high, but it's also more likely to be shared. Sectioned off and well structured. The content should be sectioned off properly. Don't use massive paragraphs that spill words onto the screen. Keep things short and truncated with 3 or 4 sentences per paragraph at the maximum. Additionally, use section headings often to break the content apart. It should also be well structured in that it flows well. You want it to carefully deliver across the points that you are arguing in an intelligibly and easy to flow manner rather than confusing your readers. The more time you put into this, the more likely you will be to solidify your content's greatness. Don't forget to cite sources and studies. You should cite sources and studies often in your content. Never make a claim of fact without citing your source. Not only is this good practice in real life when you're writing college papers, for example, but also in the virtual world. Google is acutely concerned with content that cites sources. However, studies and citing sources does much more than that. It allows you to create a far more convincing and compelling argument. When you get into the habit of doing this, is a way to distribute it, just to name a few. But as you work through the checklist, authenticity and credibility are sometimes taken for granted or get lost in the day-to-day chores of content creation. Now let's discuss the value that good content provides. To media companies, content isn't just a product for sale. It's a tool to attract and retain subscribers, as well as potentially drive revenue from advertisers. Here's a look at the value content provides. Brand awareness. By promoting its content, new subscribers are introduced to the company. As subscribers see promotions, they become more aware of the brand and recognize its name and purpose. Keeps subscribers informed. Media companies can create content that keeps subscribers informed too. An email about upcoming TV premieres, a blog post about an upcoming interview with the celebrity, or an invitation to be an extra on a magazine shoot are always ways media companies can use content to keep subscribers in the loop. Shareable content. In today's digital age, great content is shareable. When a subscriber reads a page turner, they'll likely share a link on Facebook or mention the magazine on Twitter. Media companies that embrace social media and make it easy for subscribers to digitally spread their content realize the value of social audiences. Let us also discuss that why authenticity matters. To be authentic truly means to create original, genuine content, and subscribers these days demand nothing less. Here are the reasons for this. Overload of options. Subscribers have an enormity of media at their fingertips, which means competition for media companies is fierce. Subscribers only have so much time in their day to read a magazine, watch TV, or listen to a radio station. To stand out in a crowded space, media companies have to offer authentic content. To be authentic, media companies can't cater to everyone. In fact, you will have more success if you carve out a niche. By focusing on a specific area like fashion or gardening, you might have a smaller audience, but they'll be highly engaged because you're delivering content that's specific to their interests. We would now take a look at the importance of credibility. Subscribers make decisions based on a media company's credibility, which is why it's important to create credible, trustworthy content. Here's how credibility impacts a subscriber base. Authentic content builds a good reputation. Media companies that publish credible content with fact-checked articles, vetted information, and quotes from experienced experts build a solid reputation. It's that reputation that attracts and retains subscribers. Great content leads to more accountability. If a media company does falter and publishes false information, it's important for the company to admit wrongdoing and hold itself accountable. Subscribers expect credible content, and when that promise is broken, it can erode trust. Conclusion: the importance of authenticity of media content cannot be ruled out. Great content is the basis of a successful news business. In fact, the more authentic the content, the better audience base we can build. Therefore, it is inherent that we ensure credibility of our content for whichever medium we are looking at. And now it's time for a quick recap. Today, we talked about the problems related to content credibility of media. We discussed about the need and utility of great and credible content. We also tried to understand the advantages we get by creating credible content. At the same time, we discussed about the quality and value of good content. This is all that we had for you today. Hope you enjoyed the session. We shall soon return with another episode on media ethics. Till then, take care, thank you, and goodbye.